What is up, everybody? Hope you're all doing well. So the last 2 weeks have been pretty intense for me. I've been a little all over the place, the whole Minel journey that you saw the video vlog of, and just kind of gigs and rehearsals, and I've just been out of town. But now I'm back at home, I'm rested, I'm good to go with some more YouTube stuff. So today we're doing another Q&A video. I still have a bunch of questions from you guys I want to answer, and you can keep adding questions, just post them in the comments below, and I'll try to incorporate them into the next video and the video after that, and so on. I'll just keep making these videos as long as you guys have questions to ask. So let's just get right into it with today's video and the first question.
Can you play any other instruments? And what metal bands are you into?
I only play one more instrument aside from drums, and you can probably guess what it is by looking behind me. You have the tenor saxophone there and the soprano saxophone over there. So basically, before I got into drums, this was like when I was 9 or 10 years old, I started with a saxophone. I took saxophone lessons here in town. And basically, I played a lot of saxophone for a while, like orchestras and quartets and stuff. I don't do it as much anymore. I actually haven't played them in a couple, like in half a year probably was the last time since I played those. I just don't have the time or the interest anymore. But for a little while, I was actually considering going for a career in saxophone, like kind of orchestra stuff instead of drums. But I eventually shifted and went with drums instead. But just a little side fact there. But yeah, saxophone, I don't play anything else. I'm terrible at guitar. I'm pretty good at Guitar Hero though, but that's a different thing. Piano, not so much. Like I can understand it, it's just I'm not really good at it. So saxophone is the only other instrument aside from drums that I really play. And when it comes to metal bands, I've listened to a lot of metal bands over the years. But recently, the more kind of the bands that I listen a little bit more to recently is like Meshuggah, Periphery, Mastodon, Dream Theater, Animals as Leaders, Between the Buried and Me, Monuments, a bit of like The Faceless, Circle of Contempt, some Whitechapel. Basically a lot of prog stuff, but also some more like extreme metal kind of stuff, like Trigger the Bloodshed, Behemoth, and that kind of stuff. So there's a bunch of variety there, but I don't really listen to that much music anymore. Since I play drums all day, I just, when I get home, when I want to rest, I don't really listen to music. I just want to kind of relax my ears. But I still listen to metal, so those are a bunch of the bands that I've been listening to for a long time, and I still do.
What's your best advice to someone like me that's self-learning drums for about 6 months now?
Probably the best advice I can give is to really get into the world of drumming. Do your research, like look up a bunch of other drummers, look at videos on YouTube. That's how I did it when I started, since I'm self-taught as well. I just watched a lot of drummers on YouTube. I tried to soak up as much information as I could from other sources, like just watching people play, learning how to read drum sheet music so I could kind of work out exercises for myself and stuff. So basically just kind of be a sponge, soak in as much inspiration and information as you can from drums and other things around you. That's probably the main advice I can give. And of course, be motivated, be dedicated, and really put time into your practice, and you will see a lot of improvement. But definitely be a sponge, basically.
What are you afraid of?
So this might seem a little strange, but I'll try to explain it to the best of my ability. Basically, I'm pretty scared of stuff that's like unknown, more like unknown creatures kind of thing. Not necessarily like these mythical beasts like, Bigfoot and stuff, but more things like when I'm having nightmares, I usually dream of stuff like, there's kind of some kind of monster or like more like an animal or humanoid kind of thing roaming around and no one knows what it is and it's killing people and stuff. Like, these programs on TV, like Monster Hunt and like Animal X-Files, where they kind of talk about these weird animals or monsters and stuff that no one knows what it is. I can't watch that stuff. It's like I just freeze up. It's always been something that I just can't watch. I can't explain it. It's just this really kind of primal fear that I have, and that's the main thing, I think.
What or who inspired you to start drumming, and who inspires you now?
When I first started playing drums, there wasn't necessarily like someone that inspired me to start. I basically just started by playing drums, in music class in school. I just kind of got into it since I noticed I had a pretty easy time for it at the beginning, so it was a lot of fun. Since I didn't struggle as much, so it was fun to play. But once I actually started playing drums, my number one inspiration was Chris Adler, the drummer of Lamb of God, because I listened to a lot of Lamb of God. It was my main band, my main influence at the time, and Chris Adler was basically a god to me. I took a lot of inspiration from him when I started off, which basically launched me into the metal path on drums as well when I started off. He's still an inspiration, not as much as before, but definitely has a special place in my heart because he was just a god to me when I first started. But who inspires me now is the number one inspiration right now is Chris Coleman. There's just something about that guy, the drive he has, and just aside from the absolute amazing ability he has on the drums, it's just when I watch different drummers that are really good, I can usually kind of figure out what they're doing. I can watch their stuff and I can go, oh, he did that. That's really hard to do, but I understand what he does. But with Chris Coleman, like, he does things I can't even grasp. Like, I'm like, what the hell did he just do? That kind of thing. And he's just such a motivational guy, and he's a really nice person. So all around, Chris Coleman is the number one, but also guys like Benny Greb, Annika Nilles, all these top guys right now. But Chris Coleman is the number one right now.
What advice would you give to someone who is trying to start uploading videos to Instagram and create a following?
When you want to grow a following on any social media, there's a couple of things you really need to keep in mind. One is you need to be consistent, like you need to post often, and you need to post stuff that's relevant. For example, I never post anything that has nothing to do with drums. Every single thing I ever post is somehow related to me or my drumming or that kind of stuff. Like if you post selfies and that kind of stuff, no one's gonna care. Like it's just don't do it. Keep it to drums if that's what you want to do. If you want to launch a career in drumming, so be consistent, post content that's actually interesting, and find your niche. Like find that kind of thing that fits you, that you enjoy doing, but something that's maybe that no one else does in the same way. Kind of find your niche. When I started, that was doing these lick of the day or fill of the day kind of the thing I kind of still do. Breaking down licks very slowly and playing them fast. And that kind of thing. When I started, there was really no one else really doing that. So that was my niche, and it still is to an extent. So find the niche is also very important. Be consistent, like I said, and learn that different social medias are different in how they work. So for Instagram, like you're asking, learn the how to use hashtags. On Instagram, hashtags is a very big part of reaching out and gaining an audience there. So learn the best ones that work and do your research. And same thing, YouTube, Facebook, they're all different. Like hashtags are completely irrelevant on YouTube and Facebook, but on Instagram, they're a very big part of how you get followers. So do your research on the social media itself, on Instagram in this case. Be consistent, find your niche, and just play to the best of your ability and just show your best side. And eventually, if you do it right, you'll start seeing people coming in to follow you.
What are some job options or ways to make decent money as a drummer? Also, blue cheese or ranch?
There are a lot of different career paths you could choose as a drummer. Like you can be a gigging kind of drummer. Say if you live in a bigger music city like Los Angeles or Nashville or something, you could be this kind of drummer that just does gigs all the time. You jump in with bands, you learn a bunch of songs, and you just jump back and forth. Or you could play with one major band and just kind of push your way into the career like that. So you could be the band. You see what I mean? The gigging kind of drummer. So gigs is always an option. You could be more of a session guy, so you jump in and out of studios, or you have your equipment at home, so you record songs to people all over the world. Kind of a thing that I do a lot from my drum room. I record songs and send them, record drums for songs rather to people from all over the world, because I'm not limited to being anywhere. I can just be in my own space because I have the equipment and the wonders of the internet. But so session work is one other option. You could also do more writing transcriptions and kind of stuff. I do a little bit of that as well. Writing transcriptions for drum fills and stuff and selling that online. And you could also do video lessons and that kind of stuff. Kind of like Mike Johnston does, have this kind of empire of video lessons where people can come in and subscribe and that kind of stuff. You really just have to be creative, and I'd say the best approach is to combine a little bit of everything. Just kind of try your way and just try to do a bit of everything to keep yourself afloat. And that's what I do as well. I do a bunch of gigs for different bands. I have this tribute band I play a bit more with. I do session work in other places, but mostly from where I live in my own drum studio. And I sell transcriptions online. I do video lessons. I try to do a bit of everything to keep myself afloat. Teaching as well, of course. How could I forget? Teaching is a major part. Either teaching at a music school or in a music store or something, or just doing Skype lessons. But a lot of this is also built on actually having a following, having people that know you, that want to take lessons from you, that want to buy your stuff, that want to hire you. So social media and everything, I push that all the time. Social media is very important. That's at the core of all of this. But you can make your way forward without social media as well. But basically, session work, gigs, teaching, video lessons, selling transcriptions. Just be creative. There's a lot of stuff you can do to earn some money in this career. But when it comes to blue cheese or ranch, I'm not really a blue cheese guy. I kind of hate it, so definitely the ranch.
Do you have any advice on how to organize the teaching process? In particular, how do you approach a beginner student? I mean, for live lessons, not Skype or online teaching. P.S. We both have similar stories as drummers, so it's great to follow you through this experience, and it's so inspiring to me. I'm really happy for you and all your achievements. You work hard and you deserve all of this and much more. See you around, brother.
Man, first of all, thank you so much for the kind words. I really appreciate it. And I know you mentioned it before that we have kind of similar stories, so it's cool to hear that from you, that I can inspire you. And that's what I want to do. I want to inspire people. So awesome, man. I really appreciate it. But when it comes to approaching a beginner student, or my teaching process in general, let's start with the teaching process. I'm not really the kind of guy that really thinks too much about the lessons beforehand. I like to kind of improvise on the spot with the student at hand. So every student is different. So sometimes obviously I'll think through some stuff to have kind of a plan before. But usually I just kind of take it from where it goes. Well, I'll meet the student that day, see how they're doing, kind of what we did last time, do some repetition on what we did, and kind of see where we are, and just kind of push them in a direction that feels natural for both me and of course mostly for the student. So in general, teaching process, I'm more of an improvisation kind of guy. But it usually works out, so as long as the student is happy, right? That's what's important. But when it comes to approaching a beginner student, usually the main thing that's important in the beginning is to actually get them interested in drums, obviously, because a lot of kids, especially kids when they start out, they don't really know if it's what they want to do. They want to try it might be exciting and new, but eventually if it's not fun, they'll just quit. They'll do something else, some other instrument or play sports or something. So the main thing is to get them interested, like get them hooked. So I want to do something that's fun. I want to show them around the kit. They can, when we have 2 drum kits, I say they could pick their own. Kind of makes it a little more exciting. Like, which set do you want? It's kind of like picking a Pokemon. And I'll show them the different names and how everything sounds of the drums and how they sound, different places you can hit them, and it's kind of like that. And then obviously getting to teaching them, how to play a standard rock beat, just the basic stuff. And usually I just try to make it exciting, try to get them hooked and make it fun, just goof around a little bit to get them, to get them hooked, basically. That's what's most important in the beginning. And then eventually you can start actually teaching them a bit more kind of stuff a few lessons in to kind of push them a little bit. But in the beginning, just get them hooked. That's the most important thing.
How do you go about learning odd time signatures and polyrhythms?
My main advice for learning odd time signatures and polyrhythms is just to kind of listen to it. Listen to bands, listen to music that play this kind of music where they play odd time signatures, where they play polyrhythms and stuff. When I first got into that, it was by listening to Meshuggah. I listened to a lot of Meshuggah at the time, and they play a lot of polyrhythms. Like, their whole sound is based on polyrhythms and kind of not necessarily odd time signatures, but more like permutation and kind of stuff. So that really got me into that area of music. It's like, I can imagine if you grow up listening to only 7/8, like that's the only thing you listen to your whole life, and someone suddenly plays a song in 3/4, that would be the weirdest thing ever, because you're used to one sound, but it's just a different, you just count to a different number. That's pretty much the only difference. Same thing here. If you're used to listening to 4/4 all the time, or 3/4, as soon as someone plays a song that goes in 9/16, that's gonna be the weirdest thing ever, because you're not used to it. So my opinion, well, my idea is that you just kind of have to get used to it. You have to just listen to it a lot to get to that point where it's second nature to you, where 7/8 is just as natural as 4/4. So that's the main advice I can give. And if you listen to a lot of music that has that kind of style to it, and odd times and polyrhythms, after a while it will make sense, and you'll start to be able to play it without really having to think too much about it.
How did you make the transition from having a normal job to playing drums full time?
Basically, the way I did it was when I was finished with school about 3 years ago, I took a job in elderly care. This kind of elderly care where I go home to the elderly people in their homes and just help them there, that kind of thing. And that's a great job because it's one of the few jobs these days where you don't actually need an education to start working in it. So I could just get right into it after school. And it's kind of this job where they call me when they need me, when someone calls in sick or something, they'll call me instead. And the good thing about that was I could just sign up, and say to them, these are the days and the times when I can work, and if they need me, they'll call me. The good thing about that is I could always put drums as the priority. If I knew I had rehearsal, I knew I had a gig, I knew I wanted a day to just focus on making videos or something, I just didn't sign up for work. And if they still called me, I could decline it, and they can't force me, you know, that kind of thing. So I could basically balance my life and do as much drums as I wanted. But since it's elderly care, they always need personnel. They would still call me a lot, so I'd still be able to work like 30 hours a week if I wanted to. So I could basically balance my life, but the main thing I want to say is prioritize drums. Like I dedicated my whole life to put drums first. If they called me, but I knew I wanted that day to focus on making videos, to focus on getting my name out there, I declined. You know, I declined a bunch of money just to do what I wanted to do, to push my career forward. So put drums first and find a job that lets you do that. So with time, I basically, when I started getting a following with drums and everything on social media, I started to get a little bit of income, doing a little more gigs, started doing some session stuff, and basically Skype lessons, and kind of started teaching a bit. As soon as I started getting a little bit more income on drums, I started to scale down on elderly care. And after a while, as drums got bigger, less and less elderly care, I could finally quit in elderly care and do drums full time. That's basically how I did it. So yeah, put drums first, prioritize the drums and your career, but find a job that lets you do that. Find something that keeps you afloat, lets you get some income so you can invest into your drums, and just kind of scale back on it with time. That's how I did it, and I hope that will work for you too. Alright guys, so that will be it for today's Q&A video. I still have a bunch of questions I want to answer. It's just I want to spread them out a little bit. So I'll try to do another Q&A video hopefully at the start of next week, or basically whenever I can find the time for it. But keep adding your questions, keep asking questions, put them in the comments below, expand on something I talked today, or ask something completely different. It's completely up to you. Drums, non-drums, whatever you want to ask, I'll try to answer it whenever I can. So thank you guys for watching today's video, and I will see you again soon. Take care.